It's been a month since the U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan, but temperatures are still running high in China. I'm not talking about the heat wave. Beijing is still angry as a result of that visit, and this shows in the disagreement, and it shows its disagreement in every way possible. Sanctions, military drills, even abandoning decades-old ties. But today I want to focus on one such bridge that was burnt down. The Xi Jinping government instantly suspended climate talks with Washington. This was a huge blow for climate scientists and activists around the world. They hoped that the talks will resume within weeks, but that does not seem to be happening. Over the last 30 days, U.S. Climate envoy John Kerry has repeatedly urged Beijing to not let climate talks suffer. And today, China has reacted. It has announced one condition to revive the ties. The U.S. side should dispel the negative influence of Nancy Pelosi's scuttling to Taiwan. And this is an indispensable condition of the China-U.S. climate change cooperation. While international experts decoded what this means, climate experts say it will be disastrous to delay the talks. And once again, geopolitics has taken precedence over climate change, over climate action. One of the reasons that the stalemate is worrying is because the US and China are the world's largest greenhouse gas emitters. Both the countries together produce over 40% of global emissions. So a continuous collaboration is crucial for advancing global action. Both have agreed to take action within their borders. The US has passed a massive spending bill to invest in clean energy technologies, and China promised to become carbon neutral before 2060. But in some spheres of the climate-related discussions, a joint action is required, like to cut down on methane emissions. Not just one-on-one discussions that are going to take a hit. One could expect politically divisive global discussions which demand cooperation of both the US and China, like the G20 summit that has started today in Bali and the COP27 scheduled this November. Since Joe Biden took office, the talks ramped up after being on the back burner for 4 years. In April, the climate envoy John Kerry became the first senior member of Biden's administration to visit China, where he met with the high-level representatives on climate change. And then September saw a second trip. At the Glasgow summit, the two countries signed a joint declaration to enhance climate action, including setting standards for emissions reduction, deploying carbon capture techniques, and controlling methane emissions. Experts say with the history of turbulent ties, climate discussions have become somewhat immune. But never before have they come to a complete halt like today. And with me on the broadcast this minute is Megan Darby, the editor of Climate Home News, joining us from London. Thanks very much, Megan, for being here. Will this geopolitical flare-up threaten global action against climate change, according to you, and to what extent will this once again hamper climate action?
Well, thank you for having me. Yeah, I mean, both the US and China have their own reasons for acting on climate change. In both countries, they've recently experienced, in parts of the country, extreme heat waves and drought, which are, making climate change impossible to ignore. And there's also a big economic opportunity from clean technology and from transitioning away from polluting sources of energy to a cleaner economy. So they both have domestic reasons for acting, but there's an opportunity to move faster and to accelerate action and to have a positive influence on other countries in their respective orbits by collaborating. And as you say, collaboration has really reached a low point, and the latest diplomatic setback it does limit the opportunities for accelerating international climate action.
Right, and with the impact of climate change so increasingly clear, should climate change be an issue off limit when it comes to the repercussions of geopolitics and conflicts?
Yeah, so I mean, if you go back to the time when Barack Obama was president of the US, then climate change, at that time, like today, there were quite a lot of tensions between the US and China over issues like human rights and trade, the South China Sea. And climate change was seen as an oasis in the desert, an area of cooperation despite these broader tensions. And that meant that, academics and policymakers at all levels of the hierarchy could engage with each other and share expertise and share information, and there could be some progress and some collaboration. All that sort of disappeared, and relations deteriorated under Donald Trump. And it's not really got back to how it was, despite Joe Biden's increased willingness to engage with China on climate issues. China is no longer willing to see this as an isolated issue. And in a way, it's not realistic to see climate change in isolation, because climate change and the responses to it touch every area of society and every area of the economy. So the idea that climate change can be treated separately to broader geopolitical issues, it no longer holds.
Megan, we're leaving it there for the moment. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you for having me.
WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.